or 3 and a little bit pages of the Siddur that we are not all familiar with what exactly we're saying when we say them each morning. And I want to start with the Rebbein Ha'olamim that we say at the end of Ketores each morning, on days when Tachnun is said. So the words are Rebbein Ha'olamim, we know what that means, Master of all of the worlds. Ato Tivisonu, you personally have instructed us lahakriv korban atomid b'moyadoi, to offer the morning korban and the afternoon korban in its right time, and olahaktir haktores bismano, to offer the ketores in its time. And then we add 3 things. You instructed us, v'lihiyos hakoyanim ba'avodosom, that the koyanim should be in their avodah, uleviim, and the leviim beduchanom should be on their platform where they sing and where the orchestra is playing. The Yisroel b'ma'amodom, and the Israelim standing there present. Do we know what these 3 things are? And today's shir is going to explain to us a little bit more about these things. So hopefully we would be, by the time we finish the shir, we'll be clear with all 3 of these statements. And I want to start with the story. The story is that Shmuel was born. His mother looked after him for his first 2 years. Vatig Malehu, she weaned him, and then she brought him to the Mishkan, and she left him with Eli. A few years later, Shmuel was still a very young boy, and he's lying on his bed in the Mishkan in Shiloh, and somebody comes to speak to him. And Shmuel is extremely frightened. And the words that are told to him are very frightening. And Shmuel does not know what to do. The same thing repeats itself again the following night. But by then, Eli, the Kohen Gadol, has become aware that something is happening. He calls Shmuel and tells to Shmuel, have you been seeing something, hearing something? Shmuel is too frightened to respond. And Eli instructs him, if the voice comes a 3rd time, say to the voice, speak, because your servant is listening. And the voice came a 3rd time. And the message that the voice gave to Shmuel, this very little boy, was that he should tell Eli that Eli and Chofni and Pinchas are going to die, and that the Aron, the holy ark in which the luchos were kept, is going to be taken captivity by the Plishtim. The following day, Eli asks Shmuel, what did you hear? Shmuel tells Eli exactly what he had been told. Why was this? Why was Hashem exacting such a terrible punishment on Eli, Shmuel, and Eli, Chofni, and Pinchas? And why was he exacting an even more severe punishment on all of us, that the holy Aaron should be taken away from us and be taken captive by the Plishtim? And the answer is, because the Bnei Eli had been doing something wrong, something grievously wrong. The Pasuk says, asher yishkavnu es hanoshim. God forbid, as if they had violated the Yiddish women. Could that be possible? Could it at all be possible that tzaddikim serving the Beis HaMikdash should do such a terrible avera? The answer is no. And the Gemara explains that Chofni and Pinchas would leave the lady's korbanos. A lady has to bring korbanos after she gives birth to a baby. And because the lady doesn't really have much money of her own, or most women don't have much money of their own, therefore the Torah limits the korban to 2 pigeons, 2 doves, and the lady brings those korbanos. The kohen has to do the malika, the shechting from the back of the neck with his fingernail, squeeze some of the blood onto the wall of the mizbeach. Then he has to bring the bird up to the top of the mizbeach and spread the bird, after having cut it open, spread it over the fire. Bringing up the parts of the korbanos onto the top of the mizbeach was an arduous task. And Chofni and Pinchas were concerned that the other korbanos had to have something else done to them, and that was that their flesh had to be eaten by the kohanim. There were only 2 kohanim, so they would prepare and ready the meats of the other korbanos, having brought up those parts first onto the mizbeach, and only after they'd dealt with all the other korbanos could they deal with the korbanos of the ladies. The problem was that by the time they dealt with the korbanos of the ladies, all the other people who had been in Shiloh that day had already left. And the ladies were forced to stay overnight in Shiloh, stay away from their husbands 1 extra day. And that sin, making the ladies wait, was so severe that the decree that Eli, Chofni, and Pinchas should die and that the Oren should be taken captivity was issued from Beis Din Shel Maalah. So in order to understand this, and then to understand what Shmuel, together with David, subsequently did to make sure that this does not happen ever again, we are going to take... Please mute yourself. We are going to take a little tour of the Beis HaMikdash. On your screens, you have a picture. These pictures are given to me by courtesy of Yaakov Tzemach Raskin. And the picture that you have in front of yourself is a cross-section of the Ezras Yisroel, the Ezras Kohanim, and the Ezras Noshim. All the way to the left, that is the Ezras Noshim. The middle, there is a wall going straight up. That is the wall from between the Ezras Noshim and the Ezras Yisroel. It had 1 gate, Shari Nikanor. And then you see a flat level, which then rises, and then another flat level. The first flat level is the Ezras Yisroel, and you see at the end, looking at the southern side, I'll soon explain to that, you see the gates through which one comes into the Azorah. Now I expect that most of the Bochrim have either been to 770 or at least have seen photos of 770. And I'm going to be using 770 as a visual image that we can have an idea about the size of the Ezras Yisroel and then about the Mizbeach. 770 shul is 40 feet wide and 100 feet long. If you divide 40 in half, you have 20 feet. And so therefore, if you were to sort of cut the width of 770 down by half and lay the two halves end to end, you would have a room 20 feet by 200 feet. That is about the size of the Ezras Yisroel, this area that you see between the wall and then that little riser which comes up to another level, which is the Ezras Kohanim. And it was in this place that all the Israelim would crowd in. The Gemara in Pesachim tells us of one occasion that 400,000 Yidden, together with their Korban Pesach, were crammed into this space. They managed to do all their Korban Pesachs. They left the Azorah. Another 400,000 came in, and then a third group of 400,000 came into this space. This was the Ezras Yisroel, the place about which we learned that on Yom Kippur, Omdim Tzfufim, they were standing so squashed together, but when it came to bowing down, Mishtachvim Revochim, they bowed down with plenty of space that one person should not be able to hear the vidui of the other person. From the Ezras Yisroel, there was a riser 1.5 amos high. That would be just about 2 foot high, 27 inches. And there were 3 steps to come up onto the Ezras Kohanim. Korbanos may be shechted by a Yisroel, provided a Kohen catches the blood from the korban as soon as it has been shechted. Move to another slide. No? Okay. Here we have a slide of the whole of Har HaBayis, 500 amos by 500 amos. We know, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but we know the southwestern corner of this structure still stands today. It's where the Al-Aqsa Mosque stands. So 500 amos from this corner going northwards is the western wall. 500 amos from this corner going eastwards is the southern wall. Then you have the eastern wall, which is facing Har HaZeisim, and you have the northern wall, which is non-existent today. Inside that space, this space was called Har HaBayis. On the southern wall, there were gates called Sharei Chulda. 3 gates for coming in and 2 gates for going out. Which is why when they rebuilt the front of 770 with the extension, they built it then with 3 doors to come into the shul. Just like Sharei Chulda had 3 gates. When you came in from Sharei Chulda, you were below the ground. And below the ground of Har HaBayis, this whole area, there were mikvahs. So as soon as you came in, you immersed in the mikveh, and then there were steps coming up, like a subway station, steps coming up onto the ground, onto Har Habayis. And we would come into the Azara. First we had to get through Chel. Chel was surrounded by a soireg, a fence which was lattice work of brick. It had 13 openings in it. And we would come in on the southern side into the Azara. To bring a carbon, if it was a carbon tzibur, which we're going to learn soon when we will learn the Perek Izel Makoimon, then that is mandated by the Torah. We have no questions. This is the order of the day. Every single day, a carbon tamid in the morning, carbon tamid in the afternoon. Then on Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Yom Tov, each day called for its different musaf. So, for example, Shabbos, the musaf of Shabbos was an extra 2 sheep, whereas the musaf of Rosh Chodesh is a bull, a goat, and 7 lambs, and so on. The largest musaf is the musaf of Sukkot, where a total of 198 korbanos, or 204 korbanos, were offered during Sukkot. Communal offerings are called Kodshei Kodoshim, Holy of Holies. Let's move slides. Here we have an aerial view of the Ezras Kohanim. To the left, you can see under the shadow Ezras Yisroel. Communal korbanos had to be offered, shechted, on the north side of the Azara. Shchitoson batzofon. Remember, Shchina b'marava, the oil, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, is in the west of the Heichal.
Rabbi Sudak, your slides are not moving.
What slide do you see now?
The first one.
The aerial of the Mizbeach with the...
That's good. That's the one I want you to see.
Still the first line.
That was the first one. So you didn't see the one of Ezras Yisroel?
Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we'll have to do our best then. Here, if you look, can you see my arrow that's moving? Can you see my arrow?
No, we can't, no.
If I pointed, it definitely wouldn't help you. Let me try and shift picture.
Something. Now we see the arrow.
You see the arrow? You see my arrow, yes?
Moved before also.
Okay, so you can see my arrow now. That's hovering over the Ezras Yisroel. What I said is half the width of 770 and twice the length of 770. Downstairs shul. Against the back wall of Ezras Yisroel were the platforms on which the Leviim stood to sing the choir and to play the music. There are sets of steps, 3 steps coming up from Ezras Yisroel to Ezras Kohanim. I hope you can see them. And this is Ezras Kohanim. A Yisroel is not allowed to come up onto Ezras Kohanim. The Oron is inside this building all the way to the back, to the west. Shar Nicanor is on the east, and then outside, this is Ezras Noshim. Towards the end, there is the big gate, and That's the gate that goes out to Har Hazesim, through which the Sorel Azazel would go out. Kodesh Kodashim, Holy of Holy Korbanos, have to be shechted in the northern part of the Azara. Now we have here a set of 24 rings. These rings were used to hold the animal down. They were fixed to the ground. The animal's neck was held through these rings, and therefore the animal was, so to say, restrained for the purpose of the shechita. What about the other korbanos? If I want to bring a korban shlomim, I want to celebrate with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's not a Kodesh Kodashim. That's called Kodshim Kalim. That can be shechted anywhere in the Azara, even in the Ezras Yisroel. There are no rings here to tie the korbanos down. The way we would tie the korbanos down was called Akedah. We would tie the front legs, and then we would tie the back legs, and we would pull the back legs and the front legs to each other. The animal would just be forced to lay down. Now that the animal is incapacitated, there's very little the animal can do other than be shechted. A Yisroel is allowed to assist in the tying down of the animal. A Yisroel is allowed to shecht the animal as long as the Kohen receives the animal. That's on Kodshim Kalim. I'm going to move on to some slides about the Mizbeach. And then again, I'm going to use a graphic. I'm going to ask you all to picture yourselves standing in the shul in 770, looking towards the wall of the Aron Kodesh, and you know that that wall is about 15, 16 feet tall. I told you before that that wall is 40 feet wide. And we are going to look at another slide with the Mizbeach. Because what I want to suggest to you is that the Mizbeach, this structure over here, was as tall and as wide, or a little bit wider than, the screen share is paused. Why? Resume share. The Mizbeach looked as tall, was as tall as the front wall of 770, including the slope in the air conditioner, and a little bit wider, 45 feet wider, is 5 foot wider than the front wall of 770. I'm going to try to get the other pictures because they are necessary in order to be able to move on onto the Mishnahs. See all photos, I can see this. See all photos, you can see that. Okay. Let me come back to the Rebbein Ha'olamim. So we have to have Kohanim b'avodasom, Kohanim doing their work. And remember we said that in the time of Eli, Hophni, and Pinchas, there were only 3 Kohanim. Now think for a moment. How much meat can you eat in one meal? Just think. 4 ounces, 6 ounces, 8 ounces. And then you may have heard that there are people who are Bali Bosar that love to eat meat. And so they go to a restaurant like Prime Grill and they will buy a very big steak called a 1 pound steak. 1 pound of meat, it's a massive piece of meat. How many pounds of meat are there in a sheep? About 30. How many pounds of meat are there in a goat? A little bit more. How many pounds of meat are there in a 2-year-old bull? About 150 to 200. 3 Kohanim have a concern to eat all the meat of the carbon that they have just shechted, because if when the Kohen spritzes the blood, he thinks that he might not be able to finish eating all the meat within the prescribed time, some of that meat was the day of the Shechita and the night that followed. Some of that meat was, in Shalomim case, the day of the Shechita, the night that followed, and the following day. But if the Kohen thought that he's going to eat the meat out of time, he makes the carbon posel. It's called pigul. Hophni and Pinchas were desperate to get all the meat eaten, edible and eaten. So they had to cook it, and as soon as it was ready, they would start chewing and swallowing it, etc., devouring hundreds of pounds of meat a day. What do we want of them? So Shmuel, who grew up in this time of Hophni and Pinchas, and Eli not setting them right, poor man, he couldn't. Then anointing David as the Bechir Hashem, sat with David and they conceived the concept of Mishmoros. They would divide up all the Kohanim into 24 groups, Bate Avos. Every week, another mishmar of Kohanim would have to come up to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash, to do the Avodah. Later on, when there became too many people, they were divided again into Bate Avos. Some people of the mishmar were for Sunday, some people were for Monday, and so on. And the people of the base of for Sunday of that mishmar had to all be there in the Beis HaMikdash, and so on. They divided up the Leviim also into mishmaros, and when their week came, they had to be in Yerushalayim for the Beis HaMikdash. And then they divided Klal Yisrael into 24 groups. These groups were called Anshe Maimed. At least 10 people from that Anshe Maimed group for each week had to be present in the Beis HaMikdash during the time of the Korbanos. Because the halacha is that if you bring a korban, you must be present at the time of its offering. You can't fit all of Klal Yisrael into the Beis HaMikdash and expect them all to be there every single day. You would shut down the economy of the country. So the Anshe Maimed were representing the rest of Klal Yisrael by being there. Not all Anshe Maimed went, so the people of Anshe Maimed who didn't go up to Yerushalayim would have to spend that week in the marketplace of their town and they had extra Korbanos, including extra tefillas, including Ne'ilah each day. So having said these words, that the Kohanim should be B'avoidosam, the Leviim B'duchonam, and Yisroel B'ma'amodam, we now know what that is. There have to be Kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash to do the work. There have to be Leviim in the Beis HaMikdash to do the singing and the musical instruments, and to lock the doors, and to make sure the Yisraelim do not go onto Ezra's Kohanim, and any other function that the Kohanim might need from the Leviim. It says they should serve you. And you had to have Anshe Maimed, Yidden, Yisraelim, at least 10 Yidden present in the Azara during the time of any form of Avodah. In the second Beis HaMikdash, where the Chachamim realized that the Kohanim was still not bringing up the Korbanos of the ladies in the right time, and I'll explain that in a moment, they made a new takona. Some Korbanos, if you see my arrow, please tell me if you see it. It's circling around the southeastern corner of the Mizbeach. Some Korbanos, the Kohen was allowed to stand about over here, do the Avodah.
Sudak, we don't see it.
You don't see it, I'm sorry. Southeast, that is the corner to the left that you see in front of the Kevesh, the ramp. You see that? You see a picture with a Mizbeach in front of you. Rabbi Itzinger?
Yeah, the picture we see, the arrow not.
Good. So, near the southeastern corner, the Kohen was allowed to stand, do the bird malika, split it open, and he would fling it like a frisbee. And it would rise up, 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 and it would land on the middle pyre, spread out. This was a miracle that the Kodesh Baruch Hu made, that these birds spread out as far as possible to make it look bigger than the korban really is. So having told you that the Mizbeach was as tall as the front wall of 770, how do you reach the top of the Mizbeach? By a ramp. You will notice that the ramp is the same length as the Mizbeach itself. At the bottom, 2 amos, the Mizbeach was 2 amos longer. But at the middle level, the platform that runs around the middle level, that's 30 amos by 30 amos, and the ramp is 30 amos, 45 feet. And you have to rise 15 feet in 45 feet. That means a ramp on an incline of 1 in 3. Having an incline in England of 1 in 3 for a wheelchair access is illegal. It's too sharp. I presume that in the States, the laws will be around about the same. So going up this very steep hill, 45 feet long, of the Kevesh was an arduous work. What happens if I bring a chatos? A chatos, we're going to learn, the blood gets spritzed on the sovev, on the ring around the Mizbeach. I have another slide that I want to show, which might help that. That's okay. In this slide, you see the back side, the west side of the Mizbeach. You see a ramp, which is the big ramp, and then in front of it, you see a ramp which is split level. That was the ramp for coming down from the Sovev. So I ask you if you can imaginarily walk up this ramp, which is split level. You come to the split level, you turn around and walk up. You're now on the Sovev. That Sovev was only 18 inches wide. It was 9 feet up in the air. 9 feet is higher than the ceiling of your room that you are sitting in right now. Most rooms, especially in America, are 8 foot tall. So you're standing up there on a ledge, which is only 1.5 foot wide. A foot is like one of those tiles on the floor in 770. So imagine 1.5 of those tiles, that's the width that goes around the Mizbeach, and the Kohen would have to walk around and visit each corner. We'll come to that soon. And I want to move on to Ezel Mekoimon. And start as follows. The Mishnah says, Ezel Mekoimon shel Zvachim, what is their place of the Korbanos? And the Mishnah immediately tells us, Kodesh Kodashim, if they are holy of holy Korbanos, Shchitosan, they must be shechted Batzophain in the north. I showed you before the rings by which they were shechted. The Kibbul Domon, there must immediately be a Kohen right by the Shoichet who catches the blood. B'chli Shores, in a vessel that must belong to the Beis HaMikdash, Batzophain. This must also happen on the north of the Azorah, the Ezras Kohanim. Now the Mishnah talks about different forms of Korbanos. The highest, the holiest of them are Parad v'Sar Shel Yom HaKippurim, the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur. The ones that the Kohanim took in their blood into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and spritzed the blood in the first Beis HaMikdash, standing between the two staves of the Aron, and spritzed it forwards towards the Aron, towards the Kaparis. Kaparis, the cover of the Aron. So, Par Basar Shal Yom HaKippurim, the bull, which was the Kohen Gadol's offering, Sar, that was the Yisroel's offering of Yom Kippur, Shitosim Batzophain, was shechted in the north, Kibbul Dam Klisharis Batzophain, the blood was collected in the Klisharis, a keli belonging to Beis HaMikdash in the north, the Domon Ton, their blood had to be spritzed. Hazoya, spritzing, not emptying out the cup with the blood in it. That was what we did with the Korban Pesach. We emptied out that blood at the base of the Mizbeach. Hazoya, spritzing, which is what we say on Yom Kippur, achas, achas v'achas, achas v'shtayim, etc. He spritzed one low and then one up, 2 up, 3 up, 4 up, 5 up, 6 up, 7 up. And that was his offering between the Badim, between the staves of the Aron in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And then he came out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim and he did the same, achas, achas v'achas, etc., on the Paroches. And the blood was spritzed directly onto the Paroches. And the Paroches absorbed all of that blood. when Titus HaRosha came into the Beis HaMikdash, before he entered into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he stabbed the paroiches and blood poured out of the paroiches. The blood of the Korbanos of 400 years, 420 years of the Beis HaMikdash standing, every Yom Kippur, that blood didn't dry up. Kodesh Baruch Hu kept it in the paroiches. And after he had spritzed the blood on the paroiches, Val Mizbach HaZohov, on the golden altar. That was the altar on which we would bring the Ketores once in the morning and once in the afternoon. And then the Kohen Gadol would exit the Kodesh and he would come out, and the first thing he would meet would be the western foundation of the Mizbeach, Shir Adom, the leftovers of the blood, Hayashofech, he would pour al Yesod Maravi Shemizbeach Hachitzon on the western foundation of the outer Mizbeach. So we've dealt with the Korbanos of Yom Kippur. Now we deal with another form of Korbanos. What happens if Sanhedrin make a mistake and they rule that something that is osur, they rule it mutar? And either the majority of Klal Yisrael in number follow that ruling and sin, or the majority of Shvatim, but not in number, follow that ruling and sin. And then the Sanhedrin realize that they have made a mistake. One. What happens if the Nasi makes a mistake? What happens if the Kohen Gadol makes a mistake? They have to bring an Osham which is of a different level. It's called Parim HaNisrofim or Seirim HaNisrofim. These animals, Shitosam Batzofim, have to be shechted on the north of the Azor. V'kibodomim b'chli sharis Batzofim, the blood has to be received into a Beis HaMikdash vessel on the north of the Azor, all done by the Kohanim, because Israelim cannot stand in the Ezra's Kohanim. The Dom Ton and their blood needs to be spritzed two occasions. The Dom Ton hazoya ala paroiches, their blood must be spritzed once upwards, seven downwards. Once downwards, seven upwards on the paroiches, and then onto the Mizbeach HaZohov. Then the Kohen Gadol would come out with the vessel with the blood. Shira Adoma Yeshofach al Yesod Maravi Shamizbeach HaChitzon, the leftovers of the blood he would pour onto the western foundation of the outside Mizbeach. And then the Mishnah adds a line which replies to Mishnah Aleph and Mishnah Beis. The meats of these Korbanos, Parim HaNisrofim and Seirim HaNisrofim, the meat of the Korbanos of Yom Kippur, Elu ve'elu, both of them Nisrofim have to be burned. Beveis Hadoshen, there was a place away from the Beis HaMikdash, away from the Mizbeach, where there was a constant fire burning, and that is where these meats would be burned. Mishnah Gimel. Chatois HaTzibur, if the Tzibur has to bring a Chatos, Vayochid, and the Yochid, if the Yochid has to bring a Chatos. We just spoke about the Tzibur. And evidently that's not included in this Mishnah, because we already spoke about the chatos of Sanhedrin, the chatos of the Kohen Gadol. What else is there to say chatois hatzibur? Says the Mishnah, Elohin chatois hatzibur. These are the chatois of the tzibur. Which ones? Seirei Rosh Chodoshim v'Shel Moyados. In Musaf, you say after you've said the korbanos of the day, you say Uminchosom Iniskeim, and then you say, except for on Shavuos, when you say Shnei Serim, you say V'So'ir L'Chaper. Part of the Mincha korban of Rosh Chodesh and Yom Tov was also a goat, which was a kapara, a chatos, for the whole of Klal Yisrael. This korban called a chatos and a private chatos. So, for example, a person turned on the light on Shabbos, forgetting it was Shabbos or forgetting that he was what he was doing. He now has to come to the Beis Hamikdash, and he has to bring a korban chatos. This chatos had a special process which wasn't with any other korbanos. Shchitas and batzofim. They are shechted on the north half of the Azara. There's Ezras Kohanim. Kibul damam bechli shares batzofim. The blood is received into a kli shares on the north. The domanton, their blood needs arba matonos, 4 spritzings, 1 each al arba kronos on the 4 corners. The top of the Mizbeach itself was only 9 amas high, and on each of the 4 corners there was a tower, a block, 1 amo by 1 amo by 1 amo. So the blood has to be spritzed onto the 4 kronos, the 4 horns, those 4 towers on the corners of the Mizbeach. Ketzad, how was that done? And here I draw you, somebody is drawing on my screen. Here I draw you to the picture that's in front of you. We've been hacked. Someone is playing games with us.
One second.
Can you see the Mizbeach in front of you?
We see the same slide as before.
Now?
No, it's still all the same. It's been on the same slide the whole time.
Oh. What do you see now? A slideshow?
It's been the whole time. It's been on the same slide for a minute before it went to something else, but it went right back. It's picture number 4, Azoris Mizbeach.
I really apologize. I'm not computer literate, and I really wanted this to be a share that everyone will understand and will remember. I'm screen sharing. Close this down. Okay, back to this picture that you see in front of you. Look closely at the ramp of the Mizbeach. Very difficult to see, but on the left side, you will see a little bit of a structure. That is a ramp that goes up from the ground to the soivev, to that platform, which was only 1.5 tiles of 770 floor wide, that went around the Mizbeach. So Olav HaKevesh, he went up that small ramp, Ufona, and he turned right, La Soivev, onto the Soivev, Uvoloi, and he comes, La Karendromis Mizrachis, to the southeastern corner. He spritzes onto the Keren. Keren Mizrachis Tzaphonis, the eastern northern corner. He spritzes onto the Keren. That was only 3 amas high, so that's about 4.5 foot high, so you could reach it. I want to reach the picture of the Mizbeach, and they can't see this.
Rabbi Sudak, I was told to advise you to share the full screen instead of just the tab. I'm not sure what that means.
You share the full screen. Okay, I'm sharing the full screen. Oh, what did you do? No, I don't want that. No, that's a good to leave me this one. Which picture are you looking for? I'm looking for the aerial view of the Mizbeach. This one. It's also not the clearest. So, gentlemen, if you pay close attention, to the kevesh, on the front of the kevesh, towards the bottom of the picture, there's a little ramp. And that goes up to the soivev. The Kohen turns right. He comes to the southeastern corner. The line of the Mizbech that you see in front of you, that's the eastern wall. He then comes to the northeastern corner, then moves along the Sovev to the northwestern corner, and then moves along the Sovev, just leave it the way it is, to the southwestern corner. And then there was a split level ramp, which he went down, and it brought him down to the Yesod. Shirei Adoma Yeshofech, the leftovers of the blood he would pour, Al Yesod Maravi, on the southwestern corner of the Mizbeach, Al Yesod Roimi, the southern corner of the Mizbeach. And these meats of the Korban Chatas, listen carefully. I sin, and I'm a Balkaiva, so I don't just buy a small lamb, I buy a good lamb, or a big goat, or a real Chatas Shmena. I find I'm bringing a massive bull. What happens with this? It's got to be eaten by the Kohanim, on Har Habayis it has to be eaten, not by the Kohanim's wives, but lezichri kohuna, to the males of the Kohanim. How long do they have to eat it? Le'yom v'layla at chatzos, for the day of the shechita, the night that follows, and the Chachamim have ruled that the night has to stop at chatzos. So I sin, I bring a korban, and the poor Kohen has got to struggle with making sure that he eats up all the meat. The poor Kohen has to schlep up these big emurim and put them on the Mizbeach for me. So the rule was in Harabayit, in Beis HaMikdash, that if a person came to the Beis HaMikdash and wanted to bring a korban, he had to go into the Sanhedrin and he had to present his case why he wanted to bring a korban. And they would look into his case and they would deliberate and paskin, yes, you can bring a korban, or no, you can't bring a korban. So for example, Mishnah Vav, where we're going to learn HaToida, Ve'el Nazir, the korban Toida, and the Nazir's ram, Beis Din would have to rule if I can say a goimel. A goimel in those days was a korban Toida. Now, some of you may know, but on the 3rd of September last year, I was on the M25 and the car cut me off. So I swerved. I didn't hit that car. I lost control. There were other cars on the highway. I was scared I would hit one of them. So I deliberately steered my car into the dividing wall of the M25. I hit the wall twice because I could see afterwards the marks that I had made at the points of impact. My airbags deployed. I had an injury. I was bleeding from my head. Police and ambulance came, they took me to hospital. I was kept in hospital for 2 days. I had an internal bleed in my head. And miraculously, I came out. Do I qualify to bring a korban toida for that or not? The Dayanim have to deliberate. In my instance, because I hit the wall of the dividing wall of the motorway, I can say a goimel. But what if I had a near miss and I did not hit anything, but I'd been in terrible danger? I cannot say a goimel. So when a person wanted to bring a korban in the Beis HaMikdash, he would first have to go into the Beis Din, the Sanhedrin, get permission to bring his korban, and then he could bring his korban. Now imagine if I've gone through that terrible experience, and now I'm standing in front of Sanhedrin and they say, I'm sorry, Levi, you cannot bring a korban, but I want to do something. The Beis HaMikdash had beneath it 3 floors, sub-floors. Sub-floor 1 was where we came in from Shari Chulda, and there were the mikvahs. Sub-floor 2, we were not allowed to carry money on Harabayis. So sub-floor 2 were the shulchanis, the banks, and we would change our money for tokens, wooden tokens. Sub-floor 3 was the market, the bazaar. Over there you could buy your korbanos, you could buy your menachos, all the different sorts. And you could also buy klei shoris, silver trays, golden trays, silver cups, golden cups. So imagine I decided I'm spending £200 on a korban. I go down to the bazaar. I can't bring a korban. I go down to the bazaar and I buy a silver or a gold vessel and I bring it up to Harabais now contributed to the stash of trays and cups that the Beis Hamikdash possessed. Back to the Gemara that told us there was one Pesach where there was 1,200,000 carbon Pesachs. The Kohanim were not expected during the time of the Shechita and the Hazoya of the carbon Pesach, they were not expected to take up the meats up onto the Mizbeach. So what did they do? They would take the parts that we would take out of the carbon Pesach and put them onto a tray, salt them on the tray, and stack up the trays at the foot of the kevesh, the foot of the ramp. And all night long, whilst we were sitting and having a beautiful Seder, and then eating the carbon Pesach, which we had brought home from the Beis Hamikdash, the Kohanim instead would be bringing up these emurim, all of these trays, onto the Mizbeach. And if that year there was 1,200,000 carbon Pesachs, then there must have been 1,200,000 silver or gold trays. Next Mishnah. Ha'oila. The carbon that has to be brought as a carbon oila, a burnt offering. Kodshi Kodashim. It is the holy of holy carbonos. It therefore has to be brought or shechted shchitos batzofin on the north, and the kibul damam bechlisharis batzofin. The blood has to be caught on the north by a kohen in a klisharis. The daman tone, and now we're learning something new. The blood has to be spritzed. Shtei matonos, 2 givings, shehein arba, which are 4. The blood has to reach, as we say in Musaf, al kirmiz bachacha, onto the wall of your mizbeach. Each wall had to be spritzed with the blood. How can 2 gifts spritz on 4 walls? The answer is the kohen stood at the northeastern wall, northeastern corner of the mizbeach. He spritzed at the corner, so the blood spattered onto both walls. And then he walked around halfway around the mizbeach, near the steps of the kodesh, the heichal, the ulam, etc. He was now by the southwestern corner, and he spritzed the second spritz onto that corner. He had thereby covered the northern wall, the eastern wall, then the western wall and the southern wall with the blood of the carbon oila. Shtei matonos, 2 givings, shehein arba, which effectively are 4 because they hit all 4 walls. What happens to the animal? Tuna hefshet, the animal has to be skinned, v'nituach, and cut up to its parts, v'cholel la'ishim, and gets burnt up completely on the mizbeach. That is a carbon oila. Next Mishnah, Osham, a guilt offering. And Zivchei Shalmei Tzibor, the Shlomim of Yom Tov. So in Yom Tov you have Chatos, you have Korbanos, you have Oila, and you have Shlomim. Zivchei Shalmei Tzibor v'Hashomois, the Shlomim Korbanos of Yom Tov, the Osham Korbanos of anybody, Kodesh Kodashim, they are holy of holy. Shchitos and Batzofin, they must be shechted in the north. The Kibul Damam Bechlisharis Batzofin, the blood must be received in the Klisharis on the north. The Damanton, the blood needs. Sorry. Elein Ashamos. These are the Ashams. Asham Gazelos. If a person steals, denies that he has stolen, swears to deny, and then Eidim come and prove that he has stolen. He has to bring an Asham. Asham Me'ilos. If a person has had accidental benefit from hektish, any sort. Asham Shifra Charufa. A man did an affair with a half-released Shifra Knanis. Asham Nazir. We learned it yesterday in Chumash. The Nazir has to bring an Asham because he afflicted himself. He was Mitzar himself from wine. Asham Mitzora. The Mitzora has to bring an Asham amongst his Korbonos for the very reason that he became a Mitzora. And Asham Tolui. Asham Tolui is a person who thinks, maybe I switched on the light on Shabbos. He doesn't know for sure. It was an accident. He thinks maybe. He can't bring a chatos because in his mind, he'll be excusing himself, well, I didn't really do an avera, etc. So a person who's not sure, his korban becomes ramped up to Asham. It's called an Asham Tolu, an Asham for maybe. Shchitas Matzofin, they have to be shechted in the north. Kibbudam Chishas Matzofin, the blood is to be received in the north. The Domaton Shtei Maton Neshen Arba, the blood needs to be spritzed twice, which is 4 on the 2 opposing corners, the southeastern and the north, the southeastern and the northwestern. No, wrong way. The northeastern and the southwestern, correct? The necholim, they have to be eaten lifnim min hakloim on harabayis, lezichi kuhuna, b'chol machol, in any form of cooking, roast, boiled, whichever way, it must not be raw, leyom v'layla at chatzos, for a day and the night that follows until chatzos. Rabbi Itzinger, do we still have time? Rabbi Itzinger? I'll continue. Hatoida, the carbon toida.
Yeah.
I have time?
Yes.
Hatoida, the carbon toida of El Nazir, and the ram of the Nazir. He brings an Asham and he brings a ram. These are kochim kalim. These are light korbanos. The kochim, but they're light, meaning that they do not have to be shechted on the north. Shchitosam b'chol mokum bazar, they can be shechted anywhere, even in the Ezras Yisroel. Kibudam b'chnishos, the damanton and the blood needs to be spritzed. Shtei maton shein arba, 2 spritzes that are full. V'ne'acholim, and they're eaten b'chol ha'ir, throughout the city of Yerushalayim. Not what we call Yerushalayim today, the walled city, and that which could be seen from it. For how long? L'yom v'layla at chatzos, for a day and the night that follows till midnight. Hamuramem, the parts that get taken off from these korbanos for the kohanim, kayotzebem, have the same rules. Elo only, sha'amuram, what is separated for the kohanim, ne'acholim can be eaten. La kohanim, for the kohanim, lansheim, for their wives, livneim, for their sons, for their children, lavdeim, and for their slaves. The kohen can take home this meat to wherever he's staying in Yerushalayim, and his family can join him. Shlomim, korban shlomim. We would have to bring a korban shlomim when we came up to the Beis Hamikdash for Yom Tov. And that is why Shavuos has an extra 6 days, because you can't all bring all your korbanos on the first day of Shavuos. So there's another 6 days when you can bring your korbanos and have them eaten. Any other shlomim that you bring? You want to bring a korban shlomim because you had a very good year of yield in your fields. Kodshim kalim. These are light korbanos. Shitosim chomokim basar. They can be shechted anywhere in the Azara. Kibul dom b'chlishars. Sorry, we don't have that. The dom anton, and they have to be spritzed. Shtei maton l'shein arba. 2 spritzes that are 4. V'ne'acholim, these are eaten l'yishnei yomim, for 2 days. The day of the korban, the whole night that follows, and the whole day that follows until Shkia. Hamuramem kayotzbem, the parts that are separated of the kohen is similar. Elo shamurim nechol hakohenim m'shem le'bneim le'abdeim. The parts that are separated of the kohen can be eaten by the kohen and his family. Last Mishnah. Habachar, the firstborn. V'hamaiser, and the 10th of each one of our newborn cattle or sheep. V'hapesach, and the korban pesach. They are kodshim kalim. Shitos, and they get shechted b'chol mokem b'azara, anywhere in the Azara. The domonton, their blood needs, hazoya achas, only 1 spritz. That whole cup would get emptied out, keneged hayesoid, against the foundation of the mizbeach. Shino b'chaloson, their eating is different. That's where they change. Habachar, the bachar, is eaten lakohenim, for the kohenim. V'hamaiser, and the maiser is eaten l'chol odom, for everybody. We would share the maiser with all the poor people of Yerushalayim. L'yom v'layla ad chatzos, both of these, 1 day and the night that follows till midnight. HaPesach, the korban Pesach, eino nechol, can only be eaten elo balayla at night. Ve'eino nechol, cannot be eaten elo limnuyov, it can only be eaten by those that were counted onto the korban Pesach before the shechita. Ve'eino nechol elo ad chatzos, it can only be eaten until the midnight that follows. Ve'eino nechol elo tzoli, may only be eaten roasted. It's not allowed to be raw. And it's not allowed to be cooked. It has to roast. So the Gemara says, you can't use a metal spit for korban Pesach, because the metal will get heated and the meat will be braised from the heated metal, and therefore it won't be tzli esh. It will be tzli barzel. So you can't use a pine rod as the spit, because a pine wood, when you heat it, gives off sap. And therefore, the meat that's touching the pole is going to be cooking in the sap of the wood together with roasting. The Yidden identified 1 type of wood that has very, very, if any, sap whatsoever, and that is the wood from the pomegranate tree. So there was a whole industry to make poles from pomegranate wood, and when you brought home your korban Pesach, you would stick through it the spit made from the pomegranate wood, and that is what it got roasted on, so that it should not be cooked. I thank you for listening to me. I do have more to tell you. But I think we've come to the end of tonight's shir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Sudak.
You're very welcome. Anyone who missed anything, I'm going to be giving the same shir tomorrow at, I think it is 2:45 New York time. If anyone needs, please be in touch with Rabbi Itzinger, and he will help you out.